Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Re-Tifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Human Rage, written by Alt Phil. The Deathworlders weren't as big and powerful as the legends claim. Glorx, though, thought to himself as he looked down upon the now docile creature kneeling in front of him. It was a harrowing capture, certainly. Glorx, who, the slaver, couldn't believe his luck. No one knows where this human homeworld is, where they come from. Like legends of myth, these humans will suddenly appear out of nowhere, attack slaver ships and free captured lesser beings rightfully owned by slavers. Very few survivors tell of giant monsters covered in layers of dense high-gravity world muscles and thick skin capable of withstand even the strongest electro-pulse weapons. Glorx was always dreamed of capturing one of these supposed unbeatable humans ever since the rumors of their existence first started appearing on the galactic hubnet. Most races considered the humans a fanciful tale, but Glorx knew better than to discount that anything is possible in such a large galaxy. Who's to say that these humans don't actually exist? Too many witnesses, a number of claimed survivors, and wrecked slaver ships filled with nothing but broken slaver bodies exist to discount the human fable. And Glorx wanted to see if there truly existed a race even bigger and stronger than his own. Him and his crew would certainly never seen one, and they'd gathered slaves in nearly every charted region of the galaxy. But he never thought he'd be lucky enough to come across one by itself in an uncharted section of the galaxy. It was pure luck, really, if you must admit it. His foolish and stupid navigator bungled the coordinates for a jump again. He was tempted to kill the useless whimpering fool after they completed the jump and found themselves in uncharted space yet again. But that's when they saw the ship. It appeared adrift at first, but they quickly found readings of a single life form on the ship. The ship was large for a single passenger vessel and clearly made out of stronger metal than any ship he'd ever heard of. It was of a design unfamiliar with any of the computers or crew. And that's when he recognized a symbol upon it, a symbol widely attributed to these mythical Deathworlders, the humans. Glorx wasted no time in ordering the attack. They quickly attached to the ship and were able to force their way inside of an airlock. Walking onto the ship was intimidating. It truly was built for giants, as the airlock was well over twice their height and width. For a moment, Glorx considered retreating, wondering if the stories of the human's monstrous size was true. His crew appeared equally scared and appeared ready to bolt. But that's when they heard the scream. It was a scream of fear. Fear drives his race into a lust-like state. Nothing is more pleasurable to him and his crew than another being's fear and pain. With that, they charged onto the ship and quickly found the human. It was indeed large, nearly as tall as him, the largest of his warriors. Dense, rippling muscles covered the creature, which clearly outweighed him. The only reason he didn't order a retreat out of fear was the creature was still screaming in fear. Finally, he thought, he could capture one of these humans and be revered throughout the galaxy as the best slaver ever. He ordered his crew forward to capture the large, deadly being. It was a brutal fight, as the being was so fast, so strong. They would attempt to grab or capture it, and it would nimbly evade their grasping claws. It would strike out, shattering shells in arms and legs, even shattering claws that hit its face. It even slapped his first officer and snapped off a mandible. Nearly 1/4 of the slavers' landing party suffered wounds that would take long cycles for them to heal, if they would heal at all. But finally, they had the creature. They'd never stopped screaming as it fought. Screamed as they drug it back to their ship, screamed as they threw it in their strongest cage. The fear was a strengthening, delicious balm to their wounds, and the untold amounts of galactic credits that his crew would get would make them some of the richest beings in the galaxy for this capture. They undocked from the empty vessel and sped away towards the nearest slaver station, where Glorx would display the creature and offer it to the highest bidder. Now to visit the creature and soak in its despair, to amuse himself during the long trip. It was a strange-looking creature, nearly hairless except on the head, which was covered in long golden hair. It wasn't screaming now, but sitting quietly in the corner of the cage staring at him with icy cold blue eyes. The eyes of a predator. He could not tell if it was a sexually dimorphic being or much else about it. It was impressive, but hardly living up to the legends about these humans. So sad, he thought. He rather hoped for more of a fight from one of these supposedly unbeatable Deathworlders. But what must one expect when they are the greatest slavers in the galaxy? Certainly no race could stand up to his own, who rule the galaxy slave trade with their rock-hard claws and massive size. He tried to speak to it, but it would look away. It would not make a sound, refused to talk. He'd hoped to find a whimpering, beaten beast, but at least it appeared docile. It had almost chillingly white skin, pale like purest white moon, except where his crew's claws had struck her in the face and upper manipulators, leaving black and blue marks. Eventually, out of disgust and frustration, he had no choice but to assume the creature was incapable of any sort of recognized galactic speech, and went back to his quarters to rest until they got to the slaver station. He dreamt of receiving so many credits that he could buy an entire armada of slaving vessels, surrounded by slaves of his own, and live his life in the comfort that the greatest slavers of all time deserved. Back on the human vessel, now floating through space, an alarm goes off, and a cryogenic sleep chamber opens. The human whale awakens, sleepily takes it into damage in his shuttle. He calls out simply worried question, "Sweetie?" Quickly checking camera footage of what happened during his cryosleep, he sees what the filthy bug aliens did and who they took with them. He screams in rage and pain, crying angry tears, and orders his computer to activate the locator beacon. It returns the coordinates he needs, and the ship quickly launches towards the beacon at full speed. He growls low and swears through eyes filled with angry, hateful tears. "I'm coming, don't you worry." At the slaver station, Glorksu and his crew are heralded as heroes. Anyone, even claiming to know Glorksu, can't buy themselves a drink. He drags his new slave, this human, with a stupid beeping bracelet, through the streets in her hover cage. The foolish tiny creatures there actually are impressed with this Deathworlder's prize of his, while he secretly wishes these Deathworlders were even more impressive. It was clear that some of the larger races like his own were not as impressed as they should be. If only they had seen it fight. He wishes he had a holovid of the battle with the creature, of how unbelievably fast and strong his new slave is. He was at his favorite bar, with the frustratingly docile creature in a cage next to his table, listening to his crew tell fabricated stories of the capture, each fable more wild and violent than the next. He smiled, knowing this will only bring up the price. It was then that the station commander walked into the bar, surrounded by his guards, the best in the slaving parts of the galaxy. The station commander was a hulking beast, even bigger than Glorksu. The two had seen their conflicts in the past, as they had fought before for mates, slaves, and power. But now the station commander was there to pay his respects and honor Glorksu for his amazing capture of the Deathworld human. This day couldn't get any better, Glorksu thought, as he drained the last of his drink. The human saw the slaver's space station looming close. He knew that he was deep now into space that he shouldn't be into, but he didn't care. Only one thing mattered. Her. Everything between him and her is going to die, he vowed. Glorksu was loving seeing the station commander have to admit that he, Glorksu, had the greatest slaver capture of all time. The station commander even marveled at the sheer size of this human beast he captured, and admitted that a one-on-one battle would certainly end in favor of the massively dense, albeit slightly shorter Deathworlder. Glorksu did have it to admit that he did not think that he could survive a one-on-one battle either, and humbly credited his horribly injured crew's assistance in making the capture possible, making himself sound like an even greater leader. It was while they were toasting again that the station docking master rushed in, yelling for the commander of the station. There was a shuttle approaching, and it had the markings of these supposed humans on it. Glorksu saw the shuttle and recognized it at once. It was the same shuttle he took the Deathworlder from. They had no time to prepare, no time to do anything, as the shuttle streaked in at near relativistic speeds and smashed into the docking area, not far from the bar. The explosive sound echoed up to the bar. The place was in shock as a single voice from the docks rang over the audio transponder. The human just exited the shuttle. Oh, mother of all sport, it's tearing everything apart. It's huge and And as the audio cut short, as the bar went into complete silence, that's when for the first time the Deathworlder that Clarks had captured finally spoke. Everyone's translator picked it up perfectly, relaying the strangely high-pitched voice of the Deathworlder. She said, "You bugs are in so much trouble right now." The station commander ran out of the bar with a full escort of his best warriors, just in time to see the devastation of the landing ports. The heavy metal human shuttle appeared untouched among the ruins, but there were bodies and mere parts of bodies littering the ground. He and his guard stood in shock for a moment before they heard the last sound they would ever hear. A deep-throated roar of pure unadulterated rage that shook them to their core. And then a beast was upon them. It was a massacre. "What is this?" screamed Clarkson at his Deathworlder stave. "Another one of you! We beat you, Deathworlder! Ye can beat this other human of yours!" It laughed at him, genuinely laughed. He was actually taken aback by the sound of genuine merriment in the creature's voice. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, but you're in big trouble. He's much bigger than me. After all, I'm only 7. Clarkson didn't have time to even wonder what the creature meant by that before the doors of the bar caved in and the largest hulking beast he'd ever seen ducked into the bar. It was easily over twice as tall and 4 times the weight of the Deathworlder he'd captured. It screamed one word that echoed like a bomb, shaking the very walls. "Sweetheart!" The human he captured shouted, "Daddy, help!" And with that, Clarkson realized his mistake. He had bravely captured a mere child spawn, and this was the adult, come to kill him for it. He didn't even have time to finish the thought before the hulking beast charged into the bar, roaring with a paternally driven, insane hatred so loud that the ground shook. He didn't even have time to think what to do before the gargantuan hand of this giant Deathworlder crushed his thorax, tearing him in half. He lay there on the ground beside his own twisted lower body, watching and dying as the massive Deathworlder tore apart the cage like it was the weakest paper. Daddy Deathworlder grabbed the much, much smaller Deathworlder and pulled her into a tight hug that would crush any other creature. "Who hurt you, baby?" The massive human rumbled in anger in a voice that felt like a thunderstorm. He softly brushed a finger alongside the bruise on her cheek. The last thing Clarkson saw was the tiny Deathworlder human child pointing accusingly at him, and then a massive foot descending to crush his skull. "Well," he said as he held his daughter in his lap, smiling while speeding away from the completely destroyed Staver station. "Do you still want to go visit the moons of Eridel on vacation, or should we just go home?" She looked thoughtful and said, "Can we just go home? I'm tired, and Daddy, I'm sorry. I promise I'll really go into cryosleep this time." End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.